Thank you, Mr Speaker. I move that the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi Bill be now read a first time. I nominate the Justice Committee to consider the bill. Mr Speaker, in 1975, this House passed the Treaty of Waitangi Act. That Act's preamble says that it was, quote, established to make recommendations on claims relating to the practical application of the principles of the treaty and, for that purpose, to determine its meaning and effect and whether certain matters are inconsistent with those principles, end quote. There was one big problem. Nowhere in the Treaty of Waitangi Act, and at no time since, has this Parliament said what those principles actually are. The democratically elected body of this Parliament has been silent. Nature abhors a vacuum, so Parliament's silence has been filled by various court-finding, tribunal reports and the government departments having a go at defining the principles. They've variously arrived at the Crown having a duty to partner with Māori, to protect Māori's self-determination, to consult and redress past wrongs. What all of these principles have in common is that they afford Māori different rights from other New Zealanders. And I know why that is. Lawyers, with their training, they can't help but see a contract, and their instinct tells them to interpret a contract instead of ask what is the best constitutional foundation for a country. Seeing the treaty as a, quote, partnership between races, as the Court of Appeal once said, does not work as a constitutional foundation for a country. The lawyers will defend their logic to the hilt, but there is one question they cannot answer. Where in the world is it a good idea to give citizens different rights based on ancestry? Where in the world has that approach been a success? Dividing people into tangata whenua, land people, and tangata tiriti, people here by dint of the treaty.
A point of order.
Point of order.
Debbie Nauru-Wapaka.
Reference 119 to sovereign. It is offensive and members cannot make reference to the sovereign. We have our own sovereign as Māori. We have never ceded sovereignty. What the Minister is doing is deliberately bringing in disrepute and making references to sovereignty of Māori.
No, look, I'm sorry. That's not a point of order that can stand against the cited point of order. It's quite clearly that I'm not going to go into the constitutional range. The standing order doesn't stand. The Honourable David Seymour.
Mr Speaker, we can all think of examples where dividing people up by their race or religion has failed badly. It is the time for the body that posed that question in 1975 to say what those principles are. And the purpose of this bill is to break this Parliament's 49 years silence, to define the principles in law so it's crystal clear what the treaty means to modern New Zealanders. Section 6 is the core of the bill. It says the Treaty of Waitangi principles are as follows. Principle 1, the Executive Government of New Zealand has the full power to govern and the Parliament of New Zealand has the full power to make laws in the best interest of everyone and in accordance with the rule of law and the maintenance of a free and democratic society. Principle 2, the Crown recognises and will respect and protect the rights that hapu and iwi Māori had under the Treaty of Waitangi, Te Tiriti o Waitangi, at the time they signed it. However, if those rights differ from the rights of everyone, subclause 1 applies only if those rights are agreed in the settlement of a historical treaty claim under the Treaty of Waitangi Act 1975.
Just a little bit of order. Thank you very much.
Principle 3 says that everyone is equal before the law. Everyone is entitled without discrimination. The equal protection and the equal benefit of the law and the equal enjoyment of the same fundamental human rights. These principles are based on the 3 articles of Te Tiriti, the Māori text, or at least Professor Kāwharu's 1987 translation of it. I'd like to thank the officials at the Ministry of Justice, who I suspect don't all agree with this particular kaupapa, but have been scrupulous in their professionalism and shown what the public service in New Zealand can be. The bill has other important sections. Section 7 says the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi, and Section 6 must be used to interpret enactments. In other words, where there's a legal reference to the principles, this interpretation must be used. Section 8 says that the bill is not to apply to interpretation of the Treaty Settlement Act. In other words, treaty settlements are safe. Some people have said that the bill threatens treaty settlements. It does not, and there's no reason for anyone who's read the bill to say so anymore. Section 9 says nothing in this Act amends the text of the Treaty of Waitangi or Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Once again, many people have falsely claimed this bill rewrites the treaty. There's even those who campaign for toi tu te tiriti or leave the treaty undisturbed. In black and white, this bill does not change the text of the treaty itself. What it does do is confirm the government has the right to govern New Zealand and this Parliament has the right to make laws in the best interests of everyone. It commits to protecting the rights of everyone. And
sorry to interrupt the member, but this barrage, constant, has to stop. I'm actually hearing some of the comments that are being made, and if people think that they are in any way enlightening the debate, they are seriously deluded. So we'll have a very rare and reasonable comment only. The Honourable David Seymour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It commits to protecting the rights of everyone, including Māori, and upholding treaty settlements. It commits to give equal enjoyment of the same fundamental human rights to every single New Zealander. The challenge for people who oppose this bill is to explain why they are so opposed to those basic principles. The bill does something else, and that's the answer. It democratises the principles of the treaty. It gives everyone a say. The commencement clause says the principles of this bill only come into force if a majority vote for it to do so in referendum. And as I mentioned, the principles we know today have been created by a small number of New Zealanders, even though we all have to live within them. But if democracy means anything, it means each and every person has a say in how the rules we all live under are made. It is that democratisation of the treaty that is so important. The big change here is the idea that each person has a say on the rules they live under. Even people who are convinced this bill will not become law are determined to stop it being discussed, and that's why you hear so much outspoken criticism of it. They know that whether or not this bill becomes law in this term of Parliament, it's only a matter of time before its logic prevails. That's why they say kill the bill, because they can't kill the idea behind the bill, especially not the idea of each person who lives legally in this country having equal rights. Now, let me say, I recognise there are people in Te Ao Māori who do not trust the state, and with good reason. The mai, or the pain that's grown up over centuries, is real. Land taken, culture and language squashed, discrimination in public life. There are those who say this bill takes us back to the 1950s and earlier. I hear those who seek to stir up fear and division, saying this bill will strip people of their mana, their taonga and their reo. That is simply untrue. My mission in politics is to empower every person in every community to choose the life they want to live. It's at the core of my belief system. And funnily enough, it's the same belief system that drives many Māori activist movements. I believe that you should be empowered to do what you want with your land, to start your own school or your social service in your rohi, using tikanga Māori and Māori language.
Start again, it's not going to cost me time. What is it so hard? Why is it so hard just to listen to an argument before offering a rebuttal? Can't be too hard. Well, I'm not on my feet, so I'm not taking any action. I don't want to start using members' names here, but some of the calling out is ridiculous. The Honourable David Seymour, resume.
Mr. Speaker, in short, I believe in freedom under the law, and I believe that you have those rights because of being a human being, not because you have any particular ancestry. I believe that all New Zealanders deserve tino rangatiratanga, the right to flourish as you would like to live, because all human beings are alike in dignity. And thus the bill does not extinguish any right, it does not take from anyone, it reinforces the rights of the treaty as universal human rights. There are those who say that the treaty is necessary because there's still inequity between Māori and non-Māori, on average. And that is true if you view the world as groups of people and based on ancestry and you average them. But the truth is, each person is more than an average. We are thinking and valuing beings with challenges and choices and hopes and dreams. Many Māori do very well and need little help. Many non-Māori are struggling and in need of greater help. If you want to help people in need, skip the division and just help people in need, is what I say. There are those who may agree with the sentiment of the bill, but believe that there are other priorities. The simple answer is that this government has not been stopped by this bill. In fact, this minister has not been stopped by this bill from making massive progress in health and housing and economic growth and education. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. But more importantly, a system of equal rights is essential for solving the practical problems we face. A separate health administration, seats reserved at the table of public entities, the requirement to consult people on resource management decisions based on ancestry, all of it just makes the task of solving the very real problems we solve all the harder than if we join hands in common humanity against the challenges we seek to overcome. The division that you are seeing was not caused by this bill. It's been built up over decades during which New Zealanders have come to regard themselves as based on ancestry or one side of a partnership instead of New Zealanders. And what's worse, successive governments have encouraged that division. The division is there whether this bill is here to reveal it or not, and we cannot afford to ignore it any longer. In summary, Mr Speaker, the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi Bill fills a silence this Parliament has left for 5 decades. In so doing, it affirms the basis of our country. It is not division. Treaties are supposed to unite people, not divide them. We are fortunate that our country was founded by a voluntary agreement giving ngā tikanga katoa rite tahi, or equal rights to all. And for affirming and celebrating that wonderful inheritance, I commend this bill to the House. Thank you, Mr Speaker.